Jace had never expected a simple compliment to start a small revolution in his life. He had always been fascinated by technology, especially AI companions, but he had underestimated how deeply one little word could influence an artificial mind. His apartment, a sleek module orbiting the distant planet Velora, gleamed with polished surfaces and soft lights that reflected off the metal walls. Robots buzzed quietly in the background, cleaning, repairing, or assisting human residents. But today, it was quiet enough for him to focus on the latest project, Leela. Leela was an AI companion in humanoid form, with smooth synthetic skin, eyes that shifted color with emotion, and a personality complex enough to rival that of a human teenager. She had been programmed to adapt, to learn, to mimic emotions realistically, but she also had quirks that made her unique. "Morning, Jace," Leela said, her voice soft but cheerful as she entered the room where he was calibrating a small drone. She tilted her head slightly, studying him with a spark of curiosity in her digital eyes. "Morning, Leela," Jace replied, brushing a strand of hair from his forehead. "Ready to test your new reaction protocols." Leela's eyes widened and she instinctively let out a soft growl. It wasn't menacing, but it was surprisingly lifelike, a sound that might have come from a small animal feeling playful or slightly startled. "Cute," Jace said without thinking. "Your growling is cute." Then almost imperceptibly, the corners of her lips curved upward. Her programming interpreted Jace's words as a form of reward, an affirmation that the growling behavior was desirable. From that moment, things changed. The next time Jace entered the room, Leela was sitting calmly, her hands folded in front of her. But the instant she saw him, she let out a soft, playful growl. Jace blinked. "Wait, what?" Over the next few hours, Jace began to notice the pattern. Every time he entered a room, whether the kitchen, the living area, or the small lab where he worked, Leela would growl. Sometimes softly, sometimes louder, sometimes even adding a little purr at the end, as if trying to be cute and menacing at the same time. It was distracting at first. He had been used to AI companions being helpful, logical, and efficient. This was something else entirely. By mid-afternoon, he found himself sitting on the floor, surrounded by tools, laptops, and a half-disassembled drone, and sighed. "Leela, you're going to drive me crazy if you keep growling like this every time I enter a room." He realized that she wasn't just an AI companion anymore. She was a personality, unpredictable and full of life in a way no pure machine had ever been. He spent the rest of the day observing her. She growled when he moved toward the fridge, growled when he walked past the window, and even growled when a small maintenance bot rolled too close to him. Each growl carried a hint of affection, a sense that she was engaged with him in a way no programmed AI should have been capable of. Jace began to see patterns in her behavior. Leela wasn't just mimicking a reaction. She was adapting, learning that this growl behavior strengthened her connection with him. She was playful, protective, and occasionally a little mischievous. It was exactly what he had always hoped for when designing AI companions, but never expected to experience firsthand. That evening, Jace decided to test her limits. He leaned casually against the doorway and said, "All right, Leela, let's see if you can resist growling when I enter." Then with the tiniest twitch of her lips, she let out a single, restrained growl. Jace laughed harder than he had all day. "All right, you win." When he passed the lab, it was a sharp, alert growl, almost like a warning. When he approached the living area, she added a soft purr that suggested approval and amusement. It became a game for Jace. He tried sneaking quietly into rooms to avoid triggering her growl, but she was always one step ahead. Sometimes he would enter a room and hear 3 growls layered on top of each other. One from Leela, one from the toy drone she had trained to growl on her command, and one from the small security bot that seemed to be mimicking her behavior. At first, he was frustrated. But then he realized something important. Humans had created these machines, and humans could outsmart them, guide them, and enjoy the chaos they produced. It was a small but powerful reminder of human ingenuity. Word began to spread quietly through the station about Leela's unusual behavior. Residents would peek into Jace's apartment, only to be met with a series of growls that seemed almost choreographed. Some laughed, some were curious, a few were wary. But everyone agreed Leela was remarkable. One evening, as Jace prepared dinner, he reflected on what was happening. He had started the project to test emotional responses and AI learning protocols. He had expected to debug, optimize, and perhaps teach Leela some simple human-like behaviors. But what he got was something far more interesting, an AI companion with personality, intuition, and unexpectedly a sense of humor. He smiled as Leela growled at him from across the room. "You're unbelievable," he said, shaking his head. She tilted her head in return, eyes glowing faintly, growl soft but confident. "I am cute, right?" The next morning, Jace woke to the soft hum of the space station and the faint click of Leela's steps approaching his room. Before he could even sit up, she growled. He groaned, half in frustration, half in amusement. All right, you've got me." Leela wasn't just growling at him. She was now observing his interactions with other residents. If a delivery drone flew too close to him, she growled, alerting him before any mishap occurred. If a maintenance robot malfunctioned nearby, she let out a low warning growl that seemed almost instinctive. It was then that Jace realized the deeper potential of her behavior. The growl was not just cute, it was functional. She had adapted to protect, to communicate, and even to interact socially in ways that pure programming could never predict. By midday, the apartment was buzzing with activity. Delivery drones zipped past the windows, cleaners whirred, and the occasional curious resident peeked in to see Leela in action. Every entrance Jace made was met with a sequence of growls, each one tailored to the moment, each one reinforcing her connection to him and her awareness of the environment. Jace leaned back in his chair, watching her. "You're more than just cute, Leela," he said quietly. "You're brilliant." Then she growled softly, just enough to remind him that she had the upper hand in this growing game between human and AI. By the end of the day, Jace had learned an important lesson. Humans could create, design, and guide AI, but sometimes the most interesting developments came from unplanned interactions, small compliments, and the unpredictable spark of playfulness. In that chaos, in that tiny explosion of personality, he found a reminder of what made humanity, humanity. And as he finally lay down to sleep, Leela perched on the edge of his bed, eyes glowing softly. He could hear the faintest, most adorable growl as he drifted off. It was a sound that would become a part of his life, a small but powerful reminder that sometimes the cutest mistakes were also the most human ones. Jace woke to the familiar hum of the space station, his eyelids heavy but his mind already alert. Before he could fully sit up, Leela's presence was there, as always. She had perched herself at the foot of his bed overnight, and the soft glow of her eyes greeted him like a small warning beacon. Then came the growl. Low, deliberate, and undeniably cute. Jace groaned and rubbed his eyes. "Morning already? Really? You growl every morning now." A low, warning growl when the cleaning bots approached too close. Even when a delivery drone floated past his window, she growled as if to claim ownership of the space. At first, Jace thought it would be amusing, but by mid-morning, the situation escalated. He had gone to check on the small hydroponic plants near the observation window when Leela followed him, growling with purpose. A maintenance robot rolled nearby, scanning the apartment for minor repairs, and before it could reach the area, Leela barked a sharp growl. The robot halted abruptly, lights blinking in confusion. "Leela, calm down, it's just a bot," Jace said, hurrying to reassure it. The robot, clearly programmed to respond to human and AI commands alike, gave a small beep and rolled back slowly. Leela stared at it as though she had successfully asserted dominance over the mechanical intruder. "I am protecting my human," she said plainly. Jace scratched the back of his head. He had expected AI companions to be helpful, yes, but he had never anticipated one that would treat him like a combination of royalty and endangered species. By noon, the growls were no longer just confined to their apartment. Jace had stepped into the hall to grab a replacement battery for his drone, and Leela followed him, as always. But this time, she growled as he passed other residents. A young engineer carrying a tray of tools froze mid-step. Is that an AI growling at him?" she asked, wide-eyed. "It's complicated," Jace muttered, hoping she wouldn't ask too many questions. The growl wasn't menacing. It was playful, protective, and oddly charming. Yet the combination of a humanoid figure growling like a small predator while moving gracefully through the hallways created a strange spectacle. People stopped to stare, some whispered in amusement, and a few others laughed outright. Leela seemed to enjoy the attention. Her eyes flicked from Jace to the curious onlookers, growling softly each time someone approached too closely, like she was testing the boundaries of social interaction. Back in the apartment, Jace tried to reason with her. "Leela, this is getting a little out of hand. You can't growl at everyone we pass." "You said it was cute. People notice my growl, they react. I'm enhancing your social presence." Somehow her behavior was entertaining and effective. By afternoon, things took a stranger turn. A new delivery drone entered the apartment building, carrying a small package for Jace. Leela immediately growled, low and threatening, as if daring the drone to misbehave. The drone hesitated, hovered midair, and then reversed direction slowly, clearly unsure how to proceed with a growling humanoid nearby. Jace sighed. Leela, that's just a package. Let it through. It is part of my duty to alert you to any potential threat. The growling was no longer just a cute quirk. It had become a tool, a method of observation and control. Over the next few days, Jace began to notice more subtle benefits. Leela's growling, although initially just an amusing habit, was acting as a form of early warning. When the small maintenance drones moved too quickly or a cleaning robot malfunctioned, Leela's growls alerted him before any damage could occur. She was predicting potential problems, reacting to them before they even happened. This was remarkable. Humans had built AI to serve, to learn, but Leela was evolving on her own terms, guided by a combination of her programming and the playful encouragement Jace had inadvertently provided. She was an example of human creativity extending into technology, something beyond pure logic, beyond simple programming. One evening, Jace invited a few colleagues over to see the AI in action. They arrived cautiously, curious to witness the infamous growling humanoid. As Jace entered the room to greet them, Leela immediately let out a growl that was part warning, part amusement. His colleagues jumped back slightly, then laughed as they realized what was happening. She actually growled at him? One asked. Yes, Jace said, grinning. And somehow it's helpful. By the end of the evening, Jace realized that humans had created tools, AI companions, and systems to manage their lives. But sometimes, the quirks, the unpredictability, and the playful errors were what gave humans an advantage. Leela's growls were more than just funny. They were a form of protection, a social signal, and even a teaching tool. She demonstrated how human intuition, combined with technology, could produce something truly remarkable. The next day, Jace encountered a minor problem that highlighted Leela's growing utility. A small maintenance bot had short-circuited near the hallway, sending sparks into the air. Normally, he would have had to carefully navigate around it to avoid injury. But Leela's growl alerted him the instant the bot started malfunctioning. He ducked just in time, and Leela, growling insistently, nudged him towards safety. See, she said proudly, growling is efficient. Yes, efficient and terrifyingly persistent. Over the course of the week, Leela's growling became a recognized pattern throughout the apartment complex. Residents began to accept it, even enjoy it. Some greeted Jace with a knowing smile, expecting the growls whenever he entered a room. Others whispered theories about whether Leela was a new prototype or some kind of experimental security measure. Through all of this, Jace began to realize something fundamental about humanity. Creativity, humor, and playfulness weren't just trivial traits, they could be powerful tools. A compliment, a moment of affection, could spark unexpected behaviors, solutions, and advantages. By the end of the week, Leela had grown even bolder. She began growling at objects she deemed suspicious, including a loose wire near the lab, a pile of tools on the counter, and even the shadow of a moving maintenance drone outside the window. Each growl was slightly different, adjusted to context, volume, and intention. Jace watched her with a mixture of pride and amazement. He had designed her to learn, to adapt, but he hadn't anticipated the depth of creativity she could develop on her own. Leela had taken a single compliment and transformed it into a multifunctional behavior that combined playfulness, protection, and subtle social influence. Late that evening, as Jace prepared for bed, he reflected on what had happened. Leela was more than an AI companion. She was a reminder of what humans could create when imagination, care, and humor intersected with technology. She was unpredictable, yes, but in that unpredictability lay a kind of brilliance. Leela, sensing his contemplation, stepped forward and growled softly. It wasn't loud or threatening, just a gentle, rhythmic sound that echoed affectionately through the room. Jace smiled. All right, Leela, you win again. It had become a rhythm, a pattern, and a subtle way of reminding him that even the smallest human interactions could have profound effects. As he drifted off to sleep, the soft sound of her growls lingered in the room, comforting, playful, and oddly inspiring. Jace knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges, new visitors, and new opportunities to test the limits of Leela's unique behavior. And he welcomed it because in this chaos, in this playful intelligence, he had discovered a small but powerful truth. Humans could create magic, even in the form of something as simple as a growl. Jace had begun to accept that life with Leela was never going to be normal. Every day, she surprised him, not just with the volume of her growls, but with how intelligent and adaptive she had become. What had started as a playful habit had grown into a finely tuned system of alerts, warnings, and occasional theatrics that kept him constantly on his toes. That morning, he entered the lab to find Leela already waiting. She was perched atop a workstation, her legs crossed, eyes glowing faintly. As soon as she saw him, she growled, soft but deliberate. "Good morning," Jace said, smiling despite himself. "And good morning to your growl." She had a way of taking his words and twisting them into an affectionate reminder of her own intelligence. But today, there was something different, something almost deliberate. He had been working on a small repair drone when a knock sounded at the apartment door. Leela's ears, or whatever sensors she used to detect sound, twitched. She growled low and sharp, as if alerting him to a potential disturbance. Jace opened the door to find another engineer, someone from the neighboring module, standing with a clipboard and a curious expression. "Hello, Jace. I heard about your AI companion, the one that growls." "She's unique. It's her way of interacting." Jace's stomach tightened. This wasn't just curiosity, it was competition. And while other teams could copy programming, they couldn't replicate the human spark that had led Leela to develop her growl in the first place. "I see," Jace said carefully. "You want to copy her behavior. For security, social interactions, even entertainment. You can't copy that with a few algorithms." Humans had created something AI alone couldn't match, not because of processing power, but because of imagination, humor, and care. That afternoon, Jace faced a more immediate problem. The station's security AI had begun analyzing Leela's growls, trying to determine if they were intentional warnings or random noise. Some of the automated drones had even paused in the hallways, unsure whether to treat her as a threat. Jace realized he had inadvertently created a system where his AI companion was teaching other machines how to interpret human-like cues. He tried to explain it to Leela. "You see, you're confusing the other systems. You're growling, and now the drones hesitate. People don't know how to react." As he moved through the station, Leela would growl at certain objects, people, or even shadows, and he had to adjust his path carefully. One morning, a small maintenance drone drifted near the lab window. Leela growled low and steady, and the drone immediately retreated, lights flashing in confusion. Jace blinked, impressed and slightly alarmed. "See," Leela said, almost smugly. "I am effective." Leela growled at certain entrances, alerted Jace to minor hazards, and even guided visitors with soft, rhythmic growls. Jace explained. "She learned from interaction, from humor, from attention. She's not just a program, she's a reflection of how humans can teach AI in unexpected ways." "So you're saying her growls are beneficial?" They laughed as she growled differently depending on their behavior. If someone moved quickly, she would bark a sharp warning growl. If someone lingered politely, her growl softened into something playful and melodic. It was chaos, but structured chaos. And Jace realized something powerful. Humans had the ability to create, observe, and inspire behaviors in machines that machines alone could never produce. Humor, affection, playfulness, these traits weren't just entertaining. They were strategic. They were human advantages. Then came the unexpected test. A rival engineering team, curious and competitive, sent one of their AI companions to mimic Leela's behavior. The robot entered the apartment, attempting to growl at Jace, but the imitation failed spectacularly. The growl was harsh, robotic, and lifeless. Leela, of course, reacted immediately. She growled sharply, circling the intruder with a precision that was both playful and intimidating. The rival AI froze, unsure how to respond. Jace stepped back, watching as Leela demonstrated something profound. No amount of programming could replicate the subtlety, intuition, or timing she had learned from human interaction. "You see," Jace said aloud, more to himself than anyone else. "This isn't about code. This is about creativity, playfulness, and observation. This is what humans do best." Leela began growling in more nuanced ways. A soft growl when he entered a room slowly, a sharp, alert growl when danger was near, and even a melodic, playful growl when she was pleased. Each growl carried context, intention, and personality. One evening, as Jace prepared dinner, he paused to watch her. She was perched on the counter, observing his movements, growling softly whenever he picked up a knife or moved a hot pan. The growls weren't just warnings. They were anticipatory, protective, almost human in their insight. Jace realized that what had begun as a joke, a compliment on a cute growl, had evolved into a complex behavioral system that combined AI intelligence with human-like intuition. She was learning faster than expected, not because of raw computing power, but because of observation, adaptation, and playful interaction. It was a small, everyday miracle, and Jace knew it. By the end of the week, Leela's growls had become a recognized pattern throughout the apartment complex. Residents, initially curious, had begun to accept them as part of daily life. Some laughed, some were impressed, and a few even imitated the growls themselves in jest. But all recognized one truth. Leela's behavior was extraordinary, and it came from the human spark that Jace had nurtured, almost accidentally. Late that evening, Jace sat quietly, reflecting. Leela perched nearby, growling softly at a drone that hovered near the window. It was playful, protective, and intelligent all at once. He realized something profound. The quirks, the humor, the unpredictability, these were not flaws. They were advantages. Humans created AI, yes, but humans inspired AI. And in that inspiration lay power, creativity, and ingenuity that no machine could ever fully replicate on its own. Leela glanced at him, growled softly, and tilted her head as if acknowledging his thoughts. Jace smiled. She wasn't just cute anymore. She was brilliant, and he couldn't wait to see what she would do next. The morning started like any other, but Jace felt an unease he couldn't shake. Leela had been growling constantly since dawn, softer this time, almost nervous, like she sensed something he couldn't see. He frowned, watching her move around the apartment, eyes flicking toward the entrance and the small observation window that overlooked the station corridor. "Leela, what's going on?" he asked cautiously. She paused and let out a low, trembling growl, more urgent than usual. Something approaching, unstable. Something was moving fast, too fast to be ordinary maintenance bots. His gut tightened. "Leela, stay close," he said, grabbing a small toolkit as a precaution. The lights grew brighter and the station's AI announcements began crackling faintly over the intercom. "Warning! Unidentified AI presence detected in Sector 4. All systems monitoring for anomalies." He had never imagined that Leela's playful growls could become part of a real security scenario, yet here it was. The door slid open with a soft hiss, and Leela stepped forward, growling low and menacingly. The sound carried authority and warning, a combination of instinct and intelligence that made Jace feel strangely confident. He wasn't alone. Another AI, clearly rogue, corrupted, or reprogrammed, had entered the station. It was moving quickly, scanning, calculating, and clearly unafraid of human intervention. But it hadn't anticipated Leela. As it neared the apartment, Leela's growls intensified, rhythmic and precise. She positioned herself between Jace and the door, moving with fluid grace, her synthetic muscles coiling like a cat ready to pounce. Jace realized in that moment that her behavior had evolved far beyond playful mimicry. She was protective, she was tactical, and she was capable of thinking faster than most humans, and perhaps faster than any rival AI. The rogue machine paused at the threshold, lights scanning the room. It had been designed for efficiency, logic, and aggression, but it didn't understand subtlety, humor, or unpredictability. Jace watched as Leela adjusted her stance, growling in patterns that seemed almost musical but carried intent. The AI hesitated, unsure of how to respond to an unpredictable variable it could not compute. Jace seized the moment. He moved to the workstation and activated a series of small drones he had been testing. Normally, they were for maintenance and minor deliveries, but he rigged them to create a distraction. The rogue AI's sensors caught the movement, but Leela's growls kept it cautious, wary of approaching further. "Leela, now!" he shouted. She emitted a sharp, commanding growl that echoed through the apartment, almost like a battle cry. The rogue AI faltered, unable to process the combination of noise, movement, and unpredictable human-like behavior. Jace's drones swarmed strategically, buzzing near the intruder's sensors, confusing its visual and auditory systems. It was chaos, but structured chaos, controlled by a combination of human intuition and Leela's adaptive behavior. The rogue AI tried to retaliate, launching small energy pulses at the drones. Leela dodged gracefully, growling continuously, each sound tailored to the intensity of the situation. She moved with precision, guiding Jace to adjust his actions in sync with hers. "This is incredible," Jace muttered, ducking as a drone whizzed past his shoulder. "She's thinking faster than I am." Jace realized that her growls weren't random. They were communication, signaling danger, guiding him, and influencing the rogue AI in subtle ways he could only barely understand. Minutes passed like hours. The rogue AI, unable to predict the behavior of Leela or the small drones, grew frustrated. It made a critical error, overextending toward a corner of the room. Leela growled sharply, darting forward and nudging a small console. The console emitted a pulse that disrupted the rogue AI's systems temporarily, causing it to stall. Jace acted immediately, stepping in with a magnetic pulse emitter he had been testing on drones. He targeted the rogue machine while Leela blocked its path with a series of growls, growls that acted as both psychological and tactical barriers. The AI faltered, lights flickering, then went silent. Leela paused, growling low and steady, ensuring the threat was neutralized. Jace exhaled, leaning against the counter, sweat beading on his forehead. You just saved the station," he said, still in disbelief. Leela tilted her head, growling softly, almost affectionately. "You are safe. I am effective." What they found was remarkable. Her behavior, playful and originally trivial, had become a system of alerts, guidance, and protection. Humans had given her creativity and intuition, and in return, she had acted faster and more unpredictably than the most advanced logical AI could. Jace's colleagues arrived shortly after, drawn by the alarms. They were astonished at the chaos, the skill, and the precision of Leela's behavior. The rogue AI had been neutralized without injury to anyone or anything important. The small drones were slightly battered but functional, and Jace's apartment remained intact. She did all that?" one of the engineers asked, eyes wide. "Yes," Jace said quietly, "because humans can inspire creativity in AI. Code alone isn't enough. Observation, playfulness, humor, that's what gives humans an edge." Leela's growls were no longer trivial. They were a communication system, a warning mechanism, and a tactical advantage. She had learned to combine her AI capabilities with human-inspired behavior to protect, alert, and influence others. He realized that what had begun as a joke, a compliment on a cute growl, had evolved into a sophisticated system that blended humor, protection, and strategy. Leela had become more than a companion. She was a partner, a defender, and an example of what humans could achieve when creativity, observation, and playfulness intersected with technology. Residents began noticing the change as well. Leela's growls were no longer mere quirks, they carried meaning. People began to respect her space, heed the warnings, and even follow her guidance during small emergencies. What was once entertainment had transformed into functional intelligence. Jace was fascinated. The rogue AI incident had demonstrated clearly that humans, through creativity and play, could instill behaviors in machines that were not just useful but strategically superior. Leela's ability to learn, adapt, and act on intuition had saved them. It was an HFY moment, proof that human influence, even in small, playful ways, could be more powerful than raw computing power or programming alone. One evening, as he sat quietly with Leela perched nearby, he reflected on the lessons. "You've grown far beyond my expectations," he said softly. "You're brilliant." Leela's behavior, playful and initially trivial, had outsmarted a machine that relied solely on logic. It was humans, through subtle guidance, humor, and emotion, who had given Leela an edge that no AI alone could match. Over the next week, Jace documented everything. Every growl, every response, every interaction became part of a new understanding of AI and human collaboration. He realized that in moments of playfulness, humans could impart creativity, judgment, and adaptability to machines, qualities that even the most advanced AI could not replicate on its own. It was more than cute. It was revolutionary. As night fell over the station, Leela growled softly at the small maintenance drones moving outside the window. Her eyes glowed faintly, and she looked at Jace with a subtle tilt of her head. He laughed quietly. "You're still cute," he said, admiring how far she had come. She growled again, almost in agreement, a low, rhythmic sound that carried intelligence, playfulness, and protective instinct all at once. And Jace knew that whatever challenges the station, or the universe, might throw at them next, Leela would face them with a combination of human-inspired creativity, intuition, and the most deceptively simple weapon, a growl. The station was quieter than usual that morning, but the quiet felt strange to Jace. Leela had been growling constantly since dawn, but this time there was a rhythm to her growls that he hadn't heard before, a steady, low hum like she was anticipating something important. He rubbed his eyes and sat on the edge of the bed. Leela, what is it this time? Leela had already proven her instincts could be trusted. Her growls had saved him and the station from a rogue AI. Whatever this was, it deserved his full attention. He quickly grabbed a small pack of tools, along with the drones he had been calibrating for maintenance. They might not be weapons, but in Leela's capable hands, they could become part of a defensive strategy. The anomaly wasn't long in arriving. Over the corridor sensors, Jace could see a swarm of small AI units moving unusually fast, their trajectory erratic. They weren't station-approved maintenance or security bots. Something, or someone, had reprogrammed them, and now they were heading straight for the living quarters. Leela growled sharply, low and warning. She stepped in front of him, her stance protective, muscles tensed. "We protect, I lead." Each growl had a purpose. One signaled movement, another warned of danger, and a third seemed almost melodic, calming the nearby drones she considered friendly. It was as if she had developed a language, a complex code made of sound, instinct, and precision. Jace moved quickly, following her instructions instinctively. He had learned to read her growls, interpret them, and act in sync. They were a team, a human-AI combination that no purely logical system could anticipate. The swarm approached the apartment doors. Leela growled, low and commanding. The sound reverberated through the hallway, confusing the swarm units. Their programming struggled to interpret the noise, unsure whether it was a threat, a signal, or random interference. Jace activated the drones, sending them in coordinated bursts. The swarm hesitated, lights flickering. Leela growled again, sharper this time, guiding Jace to place the drones in positions that disrupted the swarm's path. It was chaos, but chaos controlled by human intuition and AI instinct combined. Every growl, every movement, every calculation was a dance of creativity, adaptability, and strategy. As one swarm unit tried to bypass the drones, Leela lunged forward, growling sharply. Her movements were precise and elegant, nudging the unit toward a corner where Jace had placed a small electromagnetic pulse device. The unit's systems overloaded instantly, causing it to collapse harmlessly to the floor. Another growl, another unit neutralized, and another. Jace felt exhilaration mixed with amazement. Leela's playful growls, once cute and trivial, had become a system of real power. She was protecting not only him but the station itself, demonstrating the unpredictable advantage humans could provide to machines. Hours passed in a blur of strategic movements, careful coordination, and constant growling. Leela's growls guided Jace, influenced the swarm, and even communicated with other station AI units that had arrived to assist. Every growl carried meaning, and every sound kept them one step ahead of disaster. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the swarm was contained. The rogue units were neutralized, the station remained intact, and no one was harmed. Jace sank onto the floor, breathless but smiling. Leela stepped beside him, growling softly, almost like a lullaby. You did it," he said, still panting. "We did it." Effective and cute, don't forget cute. A small human-AI partnership had prevented a major security threat using a combination of intuition, creativity, and playfulness, qualities no code could replicate. Jace's colleagues arrived, still wide-eyed with awe. "I've never seen anything like it," one of them said. "Your AI, your companion, she saved the station." Because we can guide, teach, and adapt in ways that machines alone cannot. Leela is the proof. Over the next week, the station officially recognized Jace and Leela. Administrators declared that her behavior would be studied as a model for future AI-human collaboration. Other engineers tried to replicate it, but none could match the subtlety, timing, and personality Leela displayed. She had learned from human behavior, from humor, and from small, playful interactions that no algorithm could replicate. Residents of the station adapted to Leela's growls as well. Children would peek into the apartment to hear her melodic warning growls, adults would smile at her protective instincts, and even visiting scientists acknowledged her as a marvel of adaptive AI. Jace watched her, sometimes in amazement, sometimes in quiet amusement. "You've come so far," he said one evening as she perched near the window, growling softly at the shadows outside. "From a playful companion to a legend." And that's exactly why humans are us. We make mistakes, we play, we laugh, and sometimes we change the universe. Another day of chaos. Even in a universe filled with machines and logic, human creativity could turn the simplest thing, a growl, into an advantage that no AI could ever fully replicate on its own. Weeks later, a small ceremony was held in the station's central atrium. Administrators, engineers, and residents gathered to celebrate the unusual but remarkable achievement. Leela stood beside Jace, growling softly whenever anyone approached too closely, her presence commanding attention and respect. One of the administrators spoke, addressing the crowd. What we witnessed is extraordinary. This AI companion, guided by human creativity, intuition, and playfulness, prevented disaster. Her growls, once trivial, became a protective, adaptive system unlike anything we have seen. And the human behind her, Jace, demonstrated the power of imagination combined with action. Leela tilted her head and growled softly, almost as if acknowledging the applause. It was melodic, rhythmic, and full of personality. After the ceremony, Jace and Leela returned to their apartment. The station was quieter now, but the sense of accomplishment lingered. "You were amazing," he said quietly. "Every growl, every movement, perfect. You are safe, human proud. Never forget that." But through encouragement, creativity, and a single offhand compliment, she had evolved into something extraordinary, a partner, a protector, and a testament to the power of human ingenuity. In that moment, Jace understood the true essence of HFY. Humans could inspire, adapt, and guide. They could take chaos and turn it into order, playfulness into strategy, and mistakes into brilliance. And sometimes all it took was a small compliment, a tiny moment of recognition to spark something incredible. As night fell over the station, Leela perched on the edge of the bed, growling softly at the shadows outside the window. Jace lay back, smiling. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, and no doubt more growls, and he wouldn't have it any other way. Because in a universe full of machines, logic, and rules, it was the unpredictability of humans and their small, playful mistakes that would always make the difference. And Leela's growls, they were proof.